on you. Probability that Smee got 5. What do you think? If he doesn't know Spanish, will it be a high probability or a low probability?
Low.
Because why?
Because he doesn't have the language.
Because he, well,
I mean, in Espanol.
he doesn't have the Espanol knowledge, right? So it would have been pure guess. How many people don't know Spanish and purely had to guess on these? That's why I'm not collecting it. Okay. So what happens is you're going to have to go through and guess. So my question is, do we have evidence that Andrew has taken Spanish? I don't know. Well, don't answer. Okay? So here's the question. Here's the question. There we go. For the quiz, where x is the number of correct, find the probability that x equals 4. In other words, what? Well, let's change this to Andrew, who got 5 in all of them. So the probability that x equals 5. Okay, just watch on this one. What's his probability of success? If he purely guessed, there were 5 options. 1 out of 5, or a probability of 0.2. How many times did he succeed? 5. Then what's the probability of failure? Missing. Whatever's left over, right? 0.8. And how many times did he fail? 0. And then we have to take into consideration, now in this case he was 5 for 5, but what if somebody got only 4 right? Then we have to take the idea that, well, it could be the first one wrong, or the second one wrong, or the third one. There's different combinations, right? So you'd have to do 5, choose 4. In this case, we're going to stick with 5, choose 5, which is coming back from your QOD. So 5, choose 5 times 0.2 to the 5th times 0.8 to the 0. Help. So 5, NCR, 5. NCR is math, prob. So 5, NCR 5, hit enter. Then times 0.2 to the 5th times 0.8 to the 0, and what do you get?
3.2 times 10 to the negative 4.
Ooh, 3.2 e negative 4?
Yeah.
E means times 10 to the. So 3.2 times 10 to the negative 4, which really means 0.00032. You move the decimal to the left twice. Very low probability. Andrew said he got 5 for 5, so what do you think is true about Andrew and Espanol?
He knew it.
He probably knows Spanish. Did you take Spanish at some point, or are you taking it right now? C. Yeah. All right. So what happens here is I can look at the probability, and then from there determine, does he know it or not? Because there is a very tiny probability that you would have guessed 5 for 5. Is there a chance? Sure. Okay? And that's what the whole lottery idea is. Is there a chance that I would guess all 5 correct? And the Powerball. Wouldn't that be nice? Okay? So what if I said find the probability that x is less than or equal to 4? What does that mean? In terms of the Spanish quiz, what does that mean? Got 1 wrong, or 4 correct, or 3 correct, or 2, or 1, or 0. Can 0 work in this case? Yeah. You could have gotten 0 right on this. Remember that, because that'll be different when we get into geometric distribution. So what happens in this situation is I would do 5, choose 4. How many times did he succeed? What's the probability of success? 0.2. How many times did he succeed? 4. Then he failed. How many times? Once. Is that the only option? No. So plus, because or, he could have succeeded 3 times. Probability of success was 3, but then he failed twice. And what would I have to do? Plus dot, dot, dot. Right? Plus 5, choose 2, plus 5, choose 1, plus 5, choose 0. So in other words, plus dot, dot, dot. We will come back to that. If you had to type this into your calculator, think how much room for error there is. You have to type 5, choose 4, 0.2 to the 4th, 0.8 to the 1, plus 5, choose 3, times 0.2 to the 3rd, times 0.8 to... You're going to forget something in there. So what happens is I'm going to teach you a shortcut. And we'll come back to this to figure it out. Do you understand the concept of this?
Yeah.
4 on down? Could you have just done, in this scenario, could you have just done 5, choose 5? If you see that, you can choose 5, choose 5. So what's going to happen is you're going to see there's different ways of doing it, and then the calculator will help you. Yep.
So if you do, like you're saying, the 5, choose 5, do you just subtract the probability that you get from 1 to just go down and get the probability for X?
Very good. 5, choose 5 is the probability that they only get 5. But I want 4 on down, right?
Yeah.
So we would have to do minus, subtract it from 1. Why subtract from 1? Because it's 100%, right?
What about
Cool.
the option of it being 0, correct?
It
So, like,
calculate. So you would have to do 5, choose 4, 5, choose 3, choose 2, choose 1, choose 0.
Okay.
It would count. It would be. That's why I do dot dot dot, because I'm running out of board space.
So even though, like, the first one you have an option of having 5 of them being a success, you put a 4, so you don't include the 0.
What,
Like
are you talking about here?
0.2 to the 4th.
You're talking about right here.
No,
Okay.
you have like 0.2 to the 4th. On
Yep.
the second one. Why is it just 4 instead of 5? Because there'd be 5 options. There'd be 0, 1, 2, 3.
Okay. Where it's coming from is because 5, choose 4 means I succeeded 4 times.
Okay.
So success is 0.2 4 times. What is true about these two numbers? They're the same. So later on, if you had 5, choose 0, it would be 0.2 to the 0. I didn't succeed.
Oh, so, okay.
Times 0.8 to the 5, because you failed 5 times. Did that answer your question right there at
So
the
it's
end?
the individual questions, not the amounts.
Right.
Okay.
For each specific one, and that's what you have to do. Now, what is true about these two numbers?
They're added.
They've got to add to give you the 5. Okay, so what about the probability that x is greater than 1? What numbers are greater than 1? Is this discrete or continuous? One more time. This quiz, the Spanish quiz, was it discrete or continuous? Could you get 1.1 correct? No, so it's discrete because there's individual numbers. So does greater than or equal to matter now? Is there a difference between getting more than 1 right and more or greater than or equal to 1 right? Yeah, there's a big difference there. You're including 1 or not. So because it's discrete, this symbol is going to make a difference. So what would I choose? 5, choose more than 1, which is what? 2, 3, 4, or 5, right? So I could do 2, 5, choose 2, 0.2 to the second, failed 3 times, or 5, choose 3, times 0.2 to the third, times 0.8 to the second, or 5, choose 4, 5, choose 5. I'm not showing you the probability right now, and there's a reason to that, because I'm going to show you a shortcut here in just a second. Your calculator will be your definite friend here. Is that the only way to do this?
No.
Could you have done 1 and 0, and then subtracted it from 1 to get the 2, 3, 4, 5? Probably easier to just do 1 minus 5, choose 1, that's a 5, times 0.2 to the 1, 0.8 to the 4, plus 5, choose 0, times 0.2 to the 0, 0.8 to the 5. Either one of those would have worked. Either one of this or this. Do you understand the concept here? And the thinking? Take out the sheet I just gave you, the notes sheet. This should be almost word for word what you've got. Binomial distributions. What is the probability of getting 3 or more girls if a couple had 5 kids? We've been dealing with normal distributions, now we're getting into a binomial distribution where we can be specific and discrete. Whereas normal distribution is continuous because we got an infinite number of points under the bell curve, right? So this is the type of question you would get. What is the probability of getting 3 or more girls if a couple had 5 kids? Binomial setting is B instead of N. n comma p, where n is your number of trials. That hasn't changed, just like it was sample size before. P is your probability of success. There are 4 rules to a binomial setting. And this will be on the test. Number 1, and it should be the exact same thing. Number 1, test to make sure it's a binomial setting. To do that, you've got to write out the 4 things. And this is what I'll be looking for, is these 4 things. Success, let's go back to the Spanish quiz. Success or failure on each question. Was there success or failure?
Yes.
You got it or you didn't. You got it wrong or you got it right. Was there a fixed number of observations? How many questions did you have on the quiz? 5. So there was a set number. Were they independent? What you got on A, would it affect, or number 1, would it affect what you got on number 2? No. So they're independent, right? Observations. And the probability of success is the same. Did I have 5 multiple choice for each one? Yes. So then I would have this, that's why you can use 0.2 for each one. Those 4 rules have to be true. When we get into geometric distribution next week, I think it's next week, or even Friday. Friday. When we get into geometric distribution, same rules except for one of them drops. Okay?
Now you said that that's what like you're looking for. Are you saying that on a test you want us to like write it out so that we know that each one works, or just kind of like know that it's there?
No, you're going to have to. I'll have a question. Is this or prove this is a binomial setting?
Okay. So it'll say
1, success or failure. Yeah,
like
and you'll do a check. 3, fixed number of, yes, there were 10. Check. Okay. And observation. Each observation independent. Check. And you can abbreviate I and D if you want. I would know what you mean. Probability of success, so P of S is the same. Check. Okay. And then you can kind of say what they are. I'm literally for you to write these 4 out, and I'll give you a space. That won't always be the case. They might just say, find the probability. And before you go and do it, you have to know that that has to be the first 4 things that you do.
So just kind of be looking for the wording, because like you said, it'll say like prove. So.
Right.
Okay.
Now, binomial coefficient n choose k, this is what we talked about the other day on the QOD, is n factorial over k factorial times n minus k factorial. Don't worry about that. I mean, that's what it is, but we're going to be able to use NCR in our calculator. This gives a number of ways of arranging k successes among n observations. How many different ways can I arrange those trophies? How many different ways can I get 4 out of the 5 quiz questions right? Here's the equation that you need to know. Binomial probability, the probability that x equals k is n choose k times your probability of success. How many times? And then failure, which is 1 minus the probability of success. How many times? This rule right here is on your College Board sheet. So it's, you don't have to memorize. That one is on your College Board sheet. I think it's the 5th one down on the 2nd page. It says probability, and then it gives you that equation. This is not, though, and you do need to know those 4 rules. Binomial setting. All right, so then let me go to this. This is where you want to learn the calculator, okay? 2 things, and this should be on your thing. It's about the middle of the front page. Binomial Pdf versus binomial CDF. The way I remember the difference, there are 2 different ones. The way I remember the difference is Pdf is particular, just like it's a P. It's a particular or an exact one. Whereas cumulative is C. Cumulative means to accumulate, to add up, right? That's how I remember, that's how I'll try and teach you, well, that's how I'm going to teach you to remember. Those words aren't exactly what they're doing, but that's the way to remember it, okay? You don't have to worry about that question right now. PDF versus CDF. So go to your calculator, go to second vars, which is distribution, because we're dealing with distributions, normal or binomial or geometric later. Binomial, so go down, scroll down or scroll up and go to binomial PDF or CDF. And it depends on your calculator. It's 0 or A, I think. You with me? So you're going to type in Binomial Pdf on your calculator. How many trials are there? What's the probability of success? And how many times do you succeed? Number of trials, probability of success, K successes. And I think I don't really spell out what N, P, and K are on your sheet, do I? Does it say? I don't think it does. So you might want to write it on there. N is number of trials, P is probability of success, K is your number of successes. Whereas if you're dealing with a binomial CDF, it's the same, N, P, K, but it finds from that number, which is what we call K, on down. Binomial CDF always finds from that number of nouns. So if I said 4 or less, you would do 4 or 3 or 2 or 1 or 0. It'll do 4 on down for you in a split second. And you'll have your answer, so you don't have to keep adding up. So this binomial. Now here's the deal. On a test, you have to do the work and do plus, do set up 2 of them and then do plus dot dot dot. Because once you set up 2, I can go, yep, you know what to do. And then you can do it on your calculator. Multiple choice, do it right to your calculator. Calculator language does not work on a test. You can't say Binomial Pdf and write it in. That doesn't tell them that you know what it stood for. So they're going to want you to set it up. So let's go back now to this scenario. Back to the quiz. And let me write this one in black. First one was find the probability x equals 5. Is it a particular, a specific one, or is it a cumulative? It's a particular because it's equal, right? So it's a particular number. So I'm going to do Binomial Pdf or CDF? Pdf. How many test questions did you have? 5. What was the probability of success? 0.2. How many are we talking about? He succeeded 5 times. Hit equals 3.2 times 10 to the negative 4. We right? There you go. What about this one, the second one? When it's less than or equal to 4. I want 4 on down, right? So think of it as kind of a number line, 4, 3, 2, 1. So we got 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. I want this one, or 2, or 1, or 0. So you could do a specific for 5 if you want to, or do 4 on down. I've set up 4 on down. So what do I do on my calculator? Binomial Pdf or CDF? Why is it C? Because it's cumulative. I'm doing plus, 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 plus. It's cumulative, so CDF. How many questions? 5. Probability of success on a quiz? 0.2, because there were 1 out of 5 quiz questions. And how many are we talking? 4. Type it into your calculator. 0.99968. Does it surprise you that it's a really high probability that you're going to get 4 or less correct? You can get 4 or 3 or 2 or 1 or 0. That doesn't surprise me. So then what about the probability that x is greater than 1? CDF always finds from there on down. So what do I want to find? Binomial PDF or CDF? C, because it could be 1 or 0. But what do I have to do, 1 or 0? Subtract it from 1. Right? Isn't that what you did here? This part right here? You did 1 on down, 0 on down. So binomial CDF, there were 5 questions. Probability of success is 0.2. I succeeded 1 on down to get more than 1. And what do we get?
0.26, 272.
So 0.27, do we have a second on that?
Yeah.
0.27.
Well,
0.26.
it's 0.26272, so
0.26 then.
yeah.
Questions on binomial? It's the rule, which is on your College Board sheet. There's a shortcut to it. You got to decide if it's PDF or CDF. There are 4 rules: success or failure, set number, you got independence, and they all have the same probability. Those 4 rules are what we got to remember as well before we can even decide if we're going to do a binomial. All right, so what if I go back to this one? Actually, let's do this. What if I want to find the probability? Let's do this. Let's just make this less than 3. Do a different color. Let's just make this less than 3. What is the probability of getting exactly 3 girls if a couple had 5 kids? Let's just assume the probability is 0.5 and 0.5. Okay? Probability that x is less than 3, which is what? 2, 1, or 0. Not 3, 2, 1, or 0, because it's less than 3. It's just 2, 1, or 0. So I've got to do 5 choose 2 times the probability of success 2 times, probability of failure 3 times, or 5 choose 1, succeeded once, failed, oops, my bad, anyway. Succeed is 0.5. Succeeded once, failed 4 times, plus 5 choose 0 times 0.5 to the 0 times 0.5 to the 5th. Okay, so in that case, I could write out the whole thing. It's plus. What's the setup on my calculator? Binomial. You sure it's binomial? Probability of getting a girl. Success or failure? You gotta test the 4 rules. Boy or girl?
Yes.
Right? So success or failure. Is there a set number?
Yes.
5 kids. Is one child independent of the other? What comes out? Boy or girl? Sorry. Correct. They're independent. What am I missing?
Equal
All
probability.
same probability? Yeah, it's a 0.5 no matter each child. This has a 0.5 chance. Okay, so CDF, right? Isn't that what you said?
Yep.
How many kids? Out of how many? 5. Probability of success is 0.5. Comma what? If I said less than 3, we are finding 2 on down. A lot easier to type that in your calculator than to type all of this in. On your homework and on your test, you're gonna and do this on your homework, because otherwise you're gonna go, ooh, I'm not sure where I made a mistake. You can quickly check. It doesn't take very long, and the more you write it down, the more it's gonna burn in your brain. You're gonna be able to think, which direction am I talking here, and why is it PDF versus CDF? Is it greater than or less than? Does it include it? Just all these different possibilities. What do we get for probability? 50?
Yeah.
0.5 exact? Questions on PDF versus CDF?